You are watching CIOTV by Enterprise IT World, a production of Accent Info Media.
Hello and welcome. You're watching CIOTV powered by Enterprise IT World. In a series of interviews, we try to understand the perspectives of CIOs and IT leaders on various technologies and their strategies. On our show today, we are very excited to have with us Aditya Kaushik, Director of Information Communication Technology, ICT Head, Zakher Marine International. Thank you so much, Aditya, for joining us.
Thank you, Anisha. It's a pleasure to be here.
Aditya is a leading technology professional with 23 years of cross-functional, in-depth knowledge of IT strategy, operational transformation, IT project delivery, IT service enhancement, digital transformation, and much more. And he has worked across industries, including aviation, construction, ONG, and manufacturing industries. Thank you so much for being with us, Aditya. Now, after last year's stratospheric move in crude prices, how is business doing now? And what has been the impact on IT spends in your sector and your company?
So thank you so much, Anisha, once again, for giving the opportunity to be part of this series. I think when I look at or when I think about the crude prices, I'm actually at the other end of the spectrum, which is the oil and gas industry itself. Prices actually increase more spending in our side of the business. It enables a lot more projects, activities, and a lot of business activity is undertaken, which is reflective of also the spend that comes on the IT as well. We tend to have a lot more spend because as new projects come up, as new initiatives come up, there's a lot of opportunity for the business to, automate, look at new ways of creating efficiencies within the business, and also find ways to how to, get the maximum value out of every penny they invest. So prices going up, actually, I would say it benefits our industry.
No doubt, and I'm sure this is exciting times for you because for those boards, at least for pre-pandemic times, IT and the infrastructure was always an expense that had to be made. But now that thinking seems to be changing. It's seen as an investment because it's seen as an enabler. So do you think it's an enabler? And because you're saying that, because new projects are coming up for your company, you must be in the process of finalizing your IT plan or your budget for 2023. So what will be the priority area for you? And do you think that IT infrastructure is now an enabler?
So I would say IT is definitely an enabler. Yes, you're right, Anisha, that there's been a lot more focus on IT post-COVID or during COVID, because IT sort of became the only conduit through which people could still run businesses. And I think one of the flip side or a better outcome of that has happened is that people have realized that within the online digital space, there's a lot more business opportunities as well. So it's kind of benefited people to actually understand how to leverage IT, not just as a function within the organization, as something that is essential to the business, purely for connectivity and hardware, software, but also something that can actually spin the whole business model. I mean, we've seen a lot of companies going from, brick and mortar shops to entirely digital businesses. So that's one of the change and transformation that ICT has seen. And that's obviously brought in a lot of focus for ICT to become mainstream and be part of the boardroom, part of the discussions on strategies, and also be included in the financial planning as well. So yes, we've seen a lot of plans worked around how technology can, make it more efficient. And I think one of the most important shift that's happened is that rather than thinking of technology as the final plug, something they have to get right at the end for completing the solution, we are now at the design stage, implementing ideas and sort of designing solutions which involve technology at the very forefront. So My position is unique. I've been part of Zakher Marine just in the last 6 months, and I have been working with the business over the last 6 months to finalize their roadmap over the next 2 years, and also looking at how we can digitize a lot of activities, a lot of functions, and how we can make the business more efficient. So yes, we have finalized our plans. We have budgets in place, and priority areas for me is primarily looking at the core architecture of the business, looking at where we can digitize, where we can create efficiencies. And all of this will be enabled or be achieved through different platforms and software and solutions that will come from the existing industry. But one of the key things for us is to look at how we can incorporate solutions that work best for the people, the culture of the organization, and also some of the goals that the business is trying to achieve, rather than just simply plugging in a technology for the business.
All right. Aditya, then could you tell us where has your organization reached in its digital transformation journey? Why I ask this is because, nearly all organizations have started or have reached at least somewhere during this COVID pandemic in the digital transformation, even if it is a bricks and mortars business. So where have you reached? You have plans, and where do you want to go from here?
So as an occupation, besides being in IT, I also actually carry on my career progression as a transformation agent. So in my past careers, as you mentioned in my introduction, I stay within an organization for a stipulated period of time, primarily focused on transforming the organization through technology. So in Zakher Marine, as I said, since I've come in from June, we've carried out a detailed analysis of where we think there are gaps, what's the end goal, what's the business trying to achieve from the perspective of where we want to be in 2 to 5 years' time. And then we have started working on the actual plans on what technology needs to be brought in. So we are currently in the phase of what I would say a roadmap that's ready to be deployed. We have already started deploying some solutions, and there are still many more solutions to be deployed in the next 18 to 24 months.
Right. Aditya, during the pandemic, the first few solutions that perhaps came out were either customer-facing solutions because, customer was online. So you had to, get him on a platform that he could use your services. And also your employees, because employees were also working in a hybrid fashion. So you had to, take care of their interests and give them also platforms and apps to be able to use from home, with the security layer, etc. I'm trying to understand how technology is impacting business per se, beyond the customers and the employees. Because I'm sure those are the first few things even your organization would have taken care of. How is technology being deployed in the services that you provide? Could you give us an example? Are you using sensors? How do you then, track the information coming from sensors if you use them? Because oil and gas also, in the marine world, you can't quite see everything. There's a lot of estimation, and technology is helping you there, isn't it?
So I'll take it in small parts. During COVID, of course, what was essential is giving the workforce the ability to work remotely while they were in isolation, and providing them the access to a communication channel and access to their work environment from a remote access. I personally actually had a very short period where I worked from home. I worked from office almost all through the pandemic. And I think that is the case with some of the industries, especially infrastructure, energy, that there are areas that we have to develop how to actually protect people while they are still at work, how to create, areas of safety bubbles, people working, staying, residing within a sort of a quarantined area to be able to not impact their performance. Because some of the work in the industrial, oil and gas, manufacturing areas is not something we could achieve if people were not physically on the ground. Services is possibly an area where you can achieve that. So yes, non-essential services were moved to remote access, and the rest of it was always, offshore. We're an offshore entity. We have vessels and barges where workforce has to work offshore. So we created the safe environment, making sure that there was the right amount of testing and protocols in place to protect everybody who was working within these facilities. But when it comes to what's happened post-pandemic, it's sort of a spring that was tightened that's now sort of uncoiled, and everyone seems to be going back to normal. People are excited to be back. I guess there were two boards sitting at home, but it's created a better interaction. But one thing that has carried on is the ability for people to understand that now they have two platforms to engage: one in person and one through digital channels as well. So yes, we've seen a significant amount of shift. We are also in the oil and gas, the use of sensors has, and when you're talking about sensors, I guess you're referring to the oil wells and the upstream activity, which is actually something that has been there as a way of creating better monitoring and an ability to track what's happening within the pipeline or within the transmission and within the storage areas. That's sort of that evolution that has been taking place. But from our point of view, that hasn't reached that level of maturity at this stage. We are currently evaluating. So one of the areas that we are looking at is monitoring our operational performance, our fleet location, our fleet utilization in terms of movement, in terms of fuel consumption. So we're looking at various areas, but very specific areas that we are looking to see how to integrate or how to bring in the IoT technology to be able to benefit from that.
Invention has always been one thing that came naturally to man. From the great ancestor of us all who discovered the wheel, we have been moving forward with each step of our evolution to build bigger and greater things. Monuments and pyramids to technological marvels, making sure we stay one step ahead of the world around us. At Finesse, we have reached an important milestone in that journey. What began with the wheel is now our evolution, with the digital transformation of businesses being the crux of the whole operation. Whether it be by improving aspects of robotic automation to improve workflow in the manufacturing sector, or developing artificial intelligence and chatbots almost ready to pass the Turing test, we can safely say we are at the cutting edge of what technology has to offer mankind. The man who built the first wheel would love to see what his invention has left us with. A path forward we climb in ways never imagined. For as someone said, if you're setting out to do something, do it with finesse.
Aditya, if IoT is being applied, you would also need data science to be able to, make sense of all the data that you will gather. Because what good is the data unless you can, make use of it? And you have a lot of resources spread over. So are you using data analytics also to help you with the information that you gather?
So at this point, obviously, we are only using the data analytics for our backend financial and operational systems. But it's true that we do need IoT not just as a passive sensor sitting there just generating some data, but we would be looking at an end-to-end solution that not only captures the information, but also has the right amount of AI or right amount of intelligence built in to filter out the non-essential information, because a sensor can generate a significant amount of data. And one of the challenges we have when we look at an IoT solution is the communication, because on these offshore vessels and barges, the only source of communication we have is VSAT connectivity. And VSAT being prohibitive in terms of cost is something that could be a big impact. So we could look at collection of data at a static level and then looking at metrics that are defined within what we think are the critical alerts or critical metrics that require proactive action. So for us, when we are exploring IoT, we want it to be business specific. We want it to meet a certain need that sort of translate into an outcome for the business, whether it's value chain analysis, whether it's efficiency on the fleet, or whether there is tracking fuel consumption. So our focus is to actually not just look at IoT as a broad brush, putting sensors everywhere, but actually identifying these metrics, because we are sort of limited from the connectivity space. And because connectivity is such an expensive commodity for us, we have to first look at where we think we're going to create the maximum value out of this technology. And then we would be looking to design and implement it. So we are doing some trials on specific vessels and barges to test certain technology. And only when we see that, yes, there is a real ROI on it, would we look at deploying it.
All right. So Aditya, technology is changing fast. What are the technologies that you're most excited about? And you said that you're running trials. So how do you pick your partners to get what you want done? Because while your partners may be they may be vendors providing services to all people in this world, you may need something which is customized to your needs. Like you said, VSAT becomes a problem for me, so my data need not be live all the time. So how do you find someone who can give you a solution for your particular problem?
So finding the partner is always been the most challenging task. And I think to some degree, some of these events that we have help us to get FaceTime with some of these partners. And some networking helps to understand where people are operating. But yes, there is certain industries. I mean, if you're aware, ADIPEC is a platform for oil and gas entities and oil and gas companies that support the oil and gas organization. So we do have segment that actually looks at these various requirements, which are very specific to shipping, maritime, and oil and gas industry. And we look at first specialists within that industry. We identify people who have done work before within this industry. And then we look at what sort of technology do they sort of work with. It's not always easy to just go with the industry specific partner, because sometimes their solutions are fairly customized and limited. So we also look at the broad best of breed products that come from likes of some of the leading providers and technology providers in the market. Then looking at sort of merging them with some of the industry specialists, because we do see sometimes that, yes, there are certain players, certain global players and partners that have worked in this industry, but besides being industry specific, they also need to be company specific. So company specific is something we can work on as a scope of the work. But as long as they have exposure to maritime, oil and gas industries, then we engage further with them, because that's something that we have to take into consideration to reduce both the burn and the pain of actually coming to a final conclusion.
But Aditya, in your heart, you're a technologist, right? And I'm sure you keep a track of all the latest technologies. What is your wish list that you think like, wow, this technology could do this for my company? And you're not exactly sure how it's going to work, but you know that this new technology could do wonders. Do you have a wish list? Are you excited about particular technologies that could perhaps be useful in your company or your sector?
So I am definitely excited about technology. And I do explore new technology as it comes. And I guess that's something that always is there at the back of my head, to see how these new technologies can be embedded. But from a role and a strategic role within the organization, I do look at business value before I look at technology. So you can call me a business technologist, because even though I'm excited about it, I'm not sort of driven by the, let's say, the hype of the technology, but I'm looking to see where this technology can sort of have an application. And very often the culture within the organization or any organization requires a certain amount of embracing of that technology, in line with what the company thinks is good for them at that stage. And I think as long as it's aligned with some of the business goals or some of the vision of the company, then it's easier to seek adoption for these technologies. Now we've got VR, we've got AR, we've got all of these technologies, and the sort of metaverse on the horizon. That seems to be quite exciting for retail, quite exciting for the sort of user experience in the world. But for us, we do get asked these questions. We do get asked how we can benefit from it as a company, but it's not always something that we can do purely because the technology exists. We've got to sort of cover that journey of being able to map what our business requirement is to where we think it can be a good fit and where it can create business value. Because any technology that's not creating business value is not going to end up in a budget allocation. So the faster you resolve that equation, the faster you get funds approved.
That's so true, Aditya. This is a very important point that you raised that I'm sure resonates with a lot of CIOs and technology leaders. Don't go for technology because it's hard. Go for it because it creates value for you. So one big life lesson in the working of the CIOs coming in from you. So Aditya, there are a lot of lessons that companies have derived from the entire COVID pandemic experience as well. What were the lessons that you took away from the pandemic, and what can we learn, especially for companies that are in the bricks and mortars business?
So I think one of the key lesson is being able to actually be prepared, because when you have the mindset of, and we've seen that gradually increase even within our organization, that there was essentially a sort of an abandon-free environment pre-pandemic, because people were waiting to see how it's going to affect them. What the pandemic has done is sort of strengthened the mindset of health and safety, looking after how to communicate when somebody is unwell, how to put in the process of redundancy, putting in the process of contingency, how to streamline, how to involve the people aspect within your business continuity planning. While people aspect within business continuity planning was always about who to contact, now it was about, are those people available for work? Are they healthy? Can they be reached? Can they access the information? So there has been a significant shift in how we function. And I think the quarantine phase or the isolation phase that was implemented to protect the life of people was something that helped people understand that even if you do not have, and in our case, a B2B environment where we don't have customer interactions and B2B setup, we have to still protect our clients, our partners, our support services, and companies that support our business. And I think to do that, we have to develop the sort of protocols and procedures to ensure that the interaction is safe, the processes that we have can be replicated by more than one person. So I think there has been a wider sharing of knowledge, collaboration, something that departments used to initially feel needs to be tight ringed within themselves, is something that people now feel comfortable about the fact that given a circumstance, an individual is not available, who will take ownership of this information. So I think there's been a lot of changes post-pandemic. We've been reviewing how we collaborate. We've been reviewing how data is shared. We are reviewing how communication is done in case of, and some of it has sort of become so ingrained that, whether it's in person, whether it's online, it's always something that has changed the way we look at the world. And I think they use the cliche of new normal, which is something that's used by everybody. But I think it has more in-depth outcomes from it. And I think most importantly, one of the things people have realized is also that you can work remotely, and you can still continue to function and be productive, even if you're not within the brick and mortar sort of the office building. And that's created flexibility, a better work-life balance. So there's been a lot of positives that have come out from the way we do business from the current pandemic.
All right, Aditya, last question, and I'll make it a quick one. What are your ESG goals, and does technology help you achieve them?
So yes, we are definitely focused on ESG as an organization, and we are also looking at very ambitious targets to sort of implement them within our organization as well. Since we are within the shipping, maritime, oil and gas business, we are looking at every aspect. So the way we are approaching it is to first establish a framework of what we will achieve as an organization, and then we are looking at areas, especially within the offshore environment and also in the onshore. But since we have a fleet of vessels and barges, we are primarily focused on the offshore environment to see how to identify areas of efficiencies, areas of reduction, primarily within the emissions or within the consumption or the fuel consumption is where our primary focus is. And these are going to be aligned with our organization's goals. They're going to be aligned with the strategy of the country as well. And this is one thing that we are significantly focused on. And yes, technology does play a role, as I mentioned. It starts off by first monitoring fuel consumption, monitoring the vessel performance, the state of the units in terms of their maintenance, in terms of their their performance in from movement, as well as from the machinery that's actually used on these barges and vessels. So it's a comprehensive approach, looking at all the operational excellence areas, looking at where we can reduce waste, where we can reduce emissions, where we can reduce unnecessary consumption. And I think from that will come from identifying metrics within each business function, not just for offshore, but for also our onshore businesses. And from there, we will be working towards implementing or achieving these goals. And most certainly, technology, as I said in the very beginning, is that it's no longer something that people ask at the end, do we have a laptop to do this job? But it's more about how, let's see what technology is in the market first to achieve this. And I think that is definitely going to be a significant player in achieving these goals.
Right. Thank you so much, Aditya, for joining us and sharing with us your views on the usage of technology in your company, in your sector, and the prospects in the months and the years ahead. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom with all of our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anisha, and thank you to CIOTV and Enterprise IT World as well for giving this opportunity to share with my peers and the larger audience the role of technology within our business.
Thank you, Aditya. We'll wrap up this show, but we'll be back very soon with another conversation with a leading technologist on how businesses are using technology for greater efficiencies and productivity. Thank you so much for watching.